This is the Property Preservation Insider Show, where we discuss everything about the property preservation industry. So last week we spoke about different type of mowers, grass cutting how-tos, and how to be safe in the heat. And I hope you took that advice to heart because it was pretty hot outside. This week we're going to dive right into the filth and chaos and make you rethink every simple cleanup job you've ever done. Get ready for today's disasters aren't just messy, some of them are legendary. Now, let me hand it over to the industry pros, Brian and Mary. Where are we starting today?
First, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Sunday. So, in the preservation business, we are PMP. Our job is to protect and preserve the properties. Now, sometimes we get frustrated by our clients where they don't give approvals fast enough and they don't listen to the boots on the ground because we know better. I've heard that so many times. So you end up with properties that are a disaster, where if we were able to remove food, it wouldn't be as nasty a year and a half later. If they kept the power on, it wouldn't, the basements wouldn't be wet and flooded. If they kept the power on and put dehumidifiers on, it would be a happy, happy world. But unfortunately, we do not live in a happy, happy world. We deal with our disasters and some horror stories. And that's what our show is today. We're going to be discussing 4 or 5 of our top picks, kind of give everyone an insight of the industry and what it really is. We all see the wonderful photographs on the ads of everything being nice, neat, and clean. And boy, if you're in the industry, you know that's fake. So Mary, I'll let you take the first one. We can talk about this. This actually is up in her area. This property is actually quite interesting. We did the initial secure on this property a few years ago. We've been maintaining it for a while. This is one of those properties that, how do I put this politely? This is one of those houses that when the wrong person goes in, all bad things happen. And subsequently, this just got put into REO. There's a real estate agent involved in this one. But again, this is one that we've had for a long time. And subsequently, they started sending in different types of inspectors, different type of people, and then just all hell's breaking loose. Copper's being stolen, just everything's being ripped out of the house. But we're going to address the outside today. So, Mary, take it away.
So again, like Brian said, we've had this house from initial secure to date. I think we've been visiting this property for about 3 years now. We've done a little of this, a little of that there. Here within the past couple months, they've been sending in someone else. And this has always been like a very quiet property, but now the property has been broken into numerous times. We've had to change locks in the lockbox more times than I can count. But what we're going to be showing you today is items that we have been bidding for a few years, actually. This is going to be a vine removal job that we did. And there were sides of the house that were completely covered in vines. I mean, you couldn't even see the wall, the outside of that part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I know we had been bidding this for at least a year and a half, if not longer. And we finally got the approval. And the way it looks now looks like a whole new place. I mean, this place was just covered from ground to peak of the roof with vines. It was like a blanket of vines.
And surprisingly enough, in our Pennsylvania hot, moist air, and the interesting part is there's actually a farmer's field around that one, so the soil always gets a lot of nutrients, so it really helps grow things.
Yes.
But another big thing that we look at is how do you remove those vines in a way that literally came off in one big roll. It was hilarious how that happened. But one key thing that we use when we do vine removal is another big thing is like this particular property is that is concrete shingles, old school. but we use just simple scrapers. When you go start yanking and just pulling on that stuff, it tends to break apart. It's because it's up underneath the shingle, like, also with vinyl siding and things like that. It grows everywhere that it can get. So when you do those things, you just can't grab a hold and just start yanking it out. Or next thing you know, you're going to cause more damage. You're going to cause more issues. We had one where literally one of the newer guys came in and started yanking on it and pulled down a gutter system. We had to put it back up for free, and it doesn't service anything. But you get up into those areas where it's 3 stories tall. It was quite unnerving in that particular house. But just vines grow everywhere. We do a lot of these, surprisingly enough. And remember, it all starts with a single point of vine. And when you figure, like in November or October, when the growth dies off because it's colder, the banks would do something because it's a lot easier. No, they don't care. We have another house, which we'll show you in time, where literally in October, like, everything looks great. And then, in April, it comes along where you can't even see the house. All you see is divots for the windows, similar to this one. But yeah, the bank knew better. The client knew better. They just didn't want to invest the money to get it situated. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that entire vine job, surprisingly enough, only took about 2.5 hours to get rid of.
There were so many.
It was so long. It was difficult. But again, a simple scraper, and a nice pair of lobbers, and some hedge trimmers, and you can just pull those things down and get that situated. But with those, like I say, you cannot just grab and yank away, because when that happens, you will start deteriorating stuff. You'll start breaking stuff, and it doesn't service any purpose. But that particular property, that was an immaculate house. That was an older gentleman that passed away, and it's just really sad. And one of the things that we keep getting into the motto, the stuff in these properties is not available for you to take. But lo and behold, they sent someone in at some point in time, and that house was just ramsacked. Every drawer's opened up, everything's thrown around. The house used to be very clean and orderly, and you can't even walk anywhere in that house without stepping on something. And it's really sad that, this person was a veteran. This person did serve in the military, and just to see his belongings and just everything, there's no respect there. And more importantly, there's theft. And remember, this stuff is not here for you to steal. Focus on getting those vines. Focus on getting those bid approvals, not worrying about spending 3 hours at a house figuring out what you can steal. It's a sad story. It really is. But that house was fun. That house was interesting. And that's one of those that's going to stick with us for a while. And again, the neighbors, sweet old couple, they'd always wave as we're riding by cutting grass. Is really great people. So, but it just goes inside the industry, some of the things that we deal with and some of the extreme points that we do. So our next property that we're going to be dealing with is a lovely grass cut. Bring that up and you guys take a look at that one. Pictures. With this particular property, Mary, this is one of yours.
Yes. I'm not sure where the pictures are. But this property is actually one that we've had it through 2 different clients now. The first client, we didn't have it very long. Oh, this is another vine job. So this is also up in my area as well. There is a lattice fence that blocks in the backyard. And the vines were out of control. As you can see, this is another one of those to where it was just a blanket. And the thing about this one is the vines were growing in and out, in and out, in and out of the lattice fence. This is actually one of the jobs I went out onto the field and helped the contractor because it was so much. And the before and afters of this is just, it looks like a completely different place.
And that's one key thing is remembering at the end of the day, we get paid by our clients. We get paid by the banks. We get paid by those asset management companies. But just imagine being the neighbor, because this is a city base.
Mhm.
There's properties all the way around this. But imagine again having to deal with that if you lived in the house behind it. You're maintaining your yard, you're keeping things, and then you just have this mess, this overgrown mess, and it's like, who do you complain to? How do you deal with that situation? And again, you are doing your part as a good citizen in this town, and you wake up every morning and you look at this. Have to deal with this. You have to deal with the bugs. You have to deal with, the insects, the snakes, the different rodents growing and living in that area. And next thing you know, through the neglect of the process, you have to, as the neighbor, have to look at it, have to deal with the mess. And that's one thing that is always important to remember, that we do not work, in a sense, we always say that we work for the neighbors, we work for the neighborhood. So that way we take pride, we take an establishment and we make it better. Mary, how long did that job take you guys?
Uh, I would say that took us a good maybe 3.5 hours, but that is because I mean it was intertwined. Like it was like do 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 do. It was a maze.
And
But
that's one thing too. You notice, like, when on the after shots of that, nothing was broken.
yes,
Nothing
because we
was.
had to be very careful. Like we couldn't just take stuff and yank it because then those lattice pieces are very thin, very thin. It's old. It's been out in the sun for a long time. You can tell it hasn't been painted or treated in probably since it was installed, to be honest. You know what I mean? But yeah, it took a few hours just to make sure, we were getting everything out and not damaging anything on the property and trying to make it look as best as possible.
And that's one thing. Another trick is weed whackers. If you take your weed whacker, and regardless of the string that you use, throttle it down a little bit, you can very easily kind of shave that wall of that area, and that
Hmm.
helps. That's one of the tricks that we also use, because weed whackers won't leave as long as you're not going full bore on it and a lot of inner tension. It helps kind of shave that area off. It helps with um, getting in between those little spots, because again, with vines, and we do a lot of those,
Hmm.
it's also very important that, whenever you, during your grass cuts, whenever you're actually working on these properties, that you do try to hit the foundations correctly and hit them well, so that way you don't get the vine growth. But again, what they don't understand in the industry is 2 weeks is never enough. And I think anyone out in this business can definitely relate to that. There are certain properties that just need more attention that fall outside the norm. Certain clients now are actually, we're seeing that starting to pick up with a weekly grass cut. So that's coming online, especially in certain areas. Now you go into different parts of the country. There's, you have different growth. You have, sun rate, you have water rate. So obviously, depending on where you live, depends on what cuts. So an example, like, places like Florida are year-round cuts. Where the industry normally stops out somewhere in October. Different REO clients, they just cut until there's snow, and I cannot tell you how many times we have cut yards and we're pushing snow with it too. It's hilariously funny, but they want it, we'll do it. Um, but getting into different things, it's all about the maintenance of the property. Now, this particular property, it was already standing when we got it. It was already there. It took them a long time to deal with the situation as far as getting the bid approvals back. But ultimately, getting back, I always tell neighbors that, there's a posting on the door, there's a posting in the window. Call this number and talk to someone and say, like, hey, this is getting out of hand, this is getting unsightly, this needs to be dealt with. And a lot of times that helps the procedures, going through the process of the bid approvals. And then sometimes too, we advise those neighbors that if they're not getting any satisfaction from talking with the client, to definitely reach out to our local municipalities, our local cities, and code enforcement officers, because again, at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the asset management. It is the responsibility of the clients to get these things approved, to get these things taken care of as an unsightly mess. Because more importantly, yeah, it's just vines, sure, but then also what's living in those vines? What is calling that place home? We have removed vines where, there was animals living in that. There were wasps and other flying insects living in that mess. And hey, there's nothing wrong with having a little diversity, but the situations that you're seeing is really different in in a different control manner. So Josh Vegan, we when he was in Arizona, he was working for a landscaping company. We cut grass once a week till winter and then twice a month. Yeah, and that's where you get into different regions, different areas. They have different criteria that is needed based on the environment that is there. So, but getting into things as we're out at these properties, as we were doing our due diligence, always make sure that you are safe. Always make sure you're doing the best job possible. Because again, that neighbor that just bought that house has to look at that thing every day. So our job is to protect and preserve our properties, and that's one of the key things. So moving on to our next property, this is another interesting one. This is our grass cut. How would you like to, wake up? How would you like to be the neighbor to that property? How would you like to be the guy across the street looking at that thing? And again, these things don't happen overnight. The truck is buried in that.
Yes, yes. And this is the property that we've actually had through two different clients. We were doing the original grass cut and stuff. This is the house that had the cats. There was a cat locked inside, or so they thought. So we were taking care of it for our first client, and then it disappeared for a while, and then I got it back through one of my clients. And in the few months that it jumped hands, the yard went out of control. Like it was a jungle. I would say it took our contractor maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, to include raking all the clippings to make it look nice. But he did a very good job. And it's nice because the neighbor lady, I've actually talked to her. She's very, very nice lady. She takes care of all the cats in town. They come to her house. So I'm sure she's happy that all that grass is gone.
And that's one key thing, as you can tell, what is living in that grass. And another important part is, when we do get those large grass cuts where nothing can be seen, it is very critical that you go through, you walk those areas to make sure that there's nothing hidden. Because, perfect case in point, I was out at a property. We were bidding the yard cleanup. We didn't get the bid approval. I think the city did it. I think people were complaining about it enough. And lo and behold, I'm sitting here in my really cool, brand new zero turn. And there was something buried in the grass that I didn't even see. And it was a dog cable and a dog toy. And next thing I know, the spindle, the mower picks it up, wraps it around the spindle, and literally destroys the motor. It had such force when it was actually cutting, and had such force when it grabbed that, and literally it destroyed the motor. And I have to now replace a new motor because I didn't do my due diligence to make sure that area was very clear. And in my defense too, it was half buried anyway. I had to actually yank it up, but it was enough to grab that and just rip it out. So in properties like that, we do recommend, and we do take a lot of time just to walk the property to ensure we don't have a dog toy, make sure there's not a bunny nest somewhere, make sure there's nothing going on there. And then it's a grass cut. We don't want to take a life. We don't want to destroy something. Getting into some of those also, like, we get bird nests and things like that. Come to find out that certain species of birds, you're not allowed to remove the nest. If there's hatchlings in, if there's eggs in, you can't disturb that nest. So those are very important things too. Our job is just to maintain a property. We're not here to take a life. We're not here to mow over a nest of bunnies or a habit for cats or things like that. So always watch yourself out there. Make sure you're doing it right. Make sure you're doing it smart. And again, avoid all obstacles and problems that you might run into. So another house that we have, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one. This is an interesting one. We have pictures of just our trash out. We do a lot of trash outs. Over the years, we have a fleet of dump trailers and trucks. We have done a lot, and not so much this year, surprisingly enough. This year, we have been light on trash outs because it just seems like the properties are selling easier for the banks, and they just get rid of them fast, and they don't get the trash out aspect. But this particular property is interesting because this was actually an eviction that we did. And the gentleman was there, which was really strange. Normally, we don't see anyone, we don't meet anyone on these properties. But again, we were there, the real estate agent was there, the sheriff was there, the gentleman was there. And again, the eviction was performed. And, talking with the former owner of the house, he kind of signed off on all the belongings. So we were able not to put them in storage, but just to go ahead and start disposing of the items. We also allowed him to kind of pick through some of the items that he wanted. And we kind of helped him, just being social, being, human. Again, bad things happen to people. It doesn't mean anything. We all go through a rough patch from time to time. So, this gentleman was just down on his luck. He was very sick. He had to move in with his daughter. Oh, great. Chocolate milk and breakfast, if anyone's interested. That cheese is still probably good. But the thing is that this gentleman lived in this squalor. He lived in this situation. He was a metal collector. So he would drive around neighborhoods in his pickup truck and get a few bucks for the metal that he would stuff out, or he would remove refrigerators or just junk metal. But he lived in that house. That was his home. How that could be, I don't know. But I mean, you see there, he had his grandkids in there. But any which way, so after the eviction was serviced, we started trashing the property out. We started removing all those items. The interesting part with this particular property was this gentleman loved, like I say, he collected metal. But in his backyard, there were TVs, old TV tubes, TV casements, the plastic surrounds, the floor models. But what he would do is he would pick up those TVs and he would break the magnetron off the back and then take that in for scrap metal. But literally the backyard of this, because it's like a 2-acre property, the backyard literally was filled with TVs. And I'm not talking 1 or 2 or 3. We were taking dump trailer loads of TVs out. And we were literally taking the glass and smashing the glass up. We were taking 1.5 tons of TV glass, TV tube glass. And then we would take another area of the plastic surrounds and the wooden surrounds. But that's what a good trash out looks like. This is very critical that you see in these particular pictures. You see there is nothing there. We rake, we sweep. There are no blinds up. There are no hangers up. This is very critical to do a thorough job because at the end of the day, the real estate agent wants to sell a property. So we need to remove everything that we possibly can that's debris. I mean, again, there's nothing. It's clean. The water is not our fault. That's somebody else's. But nothing is left in there that doesn't serve a purpose. Now, again, you see, the dryer vent tube, of course, that's going to be there that services that property. But there's nothing left in there except for the appliances. And I'm thinking, I apologize. No, we did not pull any of the appliances out of that particular property. And that door, by the way, does go to the part of the house. Those are critical things that this is what a good trash out looks like, Oh, yeah. We did a refrigerator once, which this always boggles my mind. And by the way, there was a rat in that house. I remember very specifically. There was a rat in that house. It was probably about a 2-pounder, about the size of a cat. And right here in the kitchen, yes, cattail. Not the video. But I remember that kitchen too. The floor was so sketchy. We were afraid we were falling through in certain areas. So always, yeah, that was never fun. But another thing which is very interesting with this property, so we are literally there trashing it out. We're it's hot, we're all sweaty, we are all covered in TV tube glass, ha ha ha. But no, we're literally at this property. The real estate agent stops in on the second day and literally says, "Hey, you guys need to hurry up." And again, I know this realtor very well. We worked with him for a long time, and we're like, hey, just calm down. There's a lot going on here. You know what I mean? We got everything possible that we can, we're working for. He's like, no, you don't understand. We just sold the property. I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, we just sold this. I'm like, okay. And again, we asked, like, well, how much did you sell it for? They sold this property for $200,000 after the trash out. Now, the interesting part is that when we looked at the sheriff's sale paperwork and we looked at everything, the bank actually foreclosed on him. Are you ready for this? For I think it was like $2,800 was the eviction. $2,800. That's what it was. That's what the evictionary point was for. $2,800. And literally within 48 hours, the bank sold the property for $200,000. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the worst part also is we drove by this area. Yes, there was a lot of dog feces and animal feces in that basement, and we see that all the time. It is absolutely disgusting, and we have to go in with masks and suits to make sure that we are safe and healthy. You never want to breathe that stuff in. But yeah, I mean, it's a common thing in our industry to find areas where people just don't care and they let their animals defecate and urinate all over the house and creates hazards. There's another story which we can talk about with this one. But getting back into this, literally, we drove by the house, I don't know, about a month and a half ago. We were down the area, and the new owners bulldozed the house over. It's gone. There was 3 outbuildings and this house, and it's gone. They leveled it. Why? I don't know. But yeah, just to think about it, that you spent $200,000 and then probably another 60 grand making it all go away is just mind-boggling to me. And now all they have is just dirt. So we don't know if they're going to rebuild. We're actually watching this house very carefully. But we talk about animals, we talk about things. This is a real sad story. We're servicing a property. We've actually had this property since 2019. We'll have some pictures of it up sometime or other. Might even do a live broadcast from it. We'll see. But this house, it's a row home. It's a two-sided row home, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Really nice house, small lot. So there was a lady and a man, the husband and wife living in this house. Husband passes away. The wife she's living there. She finds a new love and she moves to a different state, not too far away, but a different state. She comes back into this area and she yard sales. She buys, the antique shop. She just buys stuff, nickel and dime, dollars, $5, whatever. And she literally packs this house full of stuff. And I'm not talking about like, oh, there's a lot of stuff. No, I'm talking about you have to climb Mount Everest to start to get to the top of the level. And then you're crouching down and you're hitting your head on the lights as you're crawling over all of this stuff. There's no aisleways. No, it's just stuff, and, it was a very dangerous situation because you don't know if you're going to get in there and you're going to break an ankle, you're going to twist something, you're going to fall through something. You don't know the conditions of the flooring, of the subfloors of what's going on in that house. But anyway, And none of it, by the way, none of it was like, it wasn't like this house. It wasn't like what you just saw with all the debris and garbage. It was just stuff, and it was just put in there. It wasn't food. It wasn't nastiness. It was just stuff. She had a polite way to say it. Maybe the death of her husband. She had that hoarding complex. So it made her feel better that, they basically, that dopamine effect. You go buy something, you reward yourself, but you can't take it back home. So you just put it in this other house that you have. So years go by, the house kind of hooks up and goes into sheriff's sale. And then the next thing I know, I start seeing dumpsters. We lose the work order. So I figured, hey, okay, sold at sheriff's sale, no big deal. Drive by it again. They're putting, they pull all of this stuff out of the house. And literally for weeks, all you saw was just 40-yard dumpsters on the street just getting filled. Then they start putting new windows in, and then kind of we lose track of the property. We don't monitor these things like forever, and then all of a sudden this year, property comes back up. It's like, hey, I remember that address. Go there, start working on it, start getting into it, and it's like start doing some research and like, wait a minute. So it went into sheriff's sale. Some person started to try to flip it, and now it's back in foreclosure. What's going on? And come to find out, it never sold. It was all still the wife, the woman that owned it, basically took care of it at sheriff's sale, paid everything off, and started to try to flip it to sell it. I'm assuming, but something happened and ran out of money. Maybe she passed away. We don't know, but it's back in our hands again with a lot less junk in and new windows. But it's one of those situations where it just boggles your mind sometimes. How could you lose it twice? And they spent $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 in working on this property, and here it is again. So it's interesting. It's an interesting industry that we live in. By all means, it is one of those things that I have seen stuff coming through that boggles your mind. You deal with everything in this industry, from the trash outs, from the vine removals, the tree trimmings. Up here in our area, we just had a massive, heavy storm coming through. So that's all we've been dealing with. A lot of is down trees, cutting up trees, taking down trees. And the versatility that you need to have in this industry really will make or break you. Being able to have the resources and common sense to be able to get jobs done, instead of being one of those situations where you're not an asset to your client. And that's one of the key things. When you see a big tree job that you can't handle, cool, call a tree guy. You get into a situation where, you want to rip down a house, call the excavation company. They'll come rip it down. It's fun to watch. We've ripped down many houses in our tenure here, in our lifetime. It's fun. It really is. It's a very interesting experience to watch, a 40-ton excavator go in on a house and just start gnawing it away. But then also you run into the sad stories. We had one property. This one kind of got to me. There was a house we went into, and again, the beautiful thing with neighbors is they always love to gab, they always love to talk, but this particular property was actually near Hershey, Pennsylvania. Hershey Park and Hershey chocolates and all that. There was a couple, and they lived in this little house. It's 3-bedroom on the top, and then they converted the basement into more bedrooms. But they were taking children in from the state of Pennsylvania. And basically, they were abusing the children. And, there was news stories about this all. And eventually, these people did get arrested, and they pled guilty, and they got 50 years each for child neglect. But basically, these children, were locked in their rooms. They couldn't leave their rooms at night to use the bathroom, to go get water, to do anything. They had to do the business in the corner of the room in a bucket. And then they were beaten during the day because they had to use the bathroom. They had to use the bucket in the corner of the room. And there were 2 or 3 kids per room. One of the boys was thirsty and he was new, so he went up into the kitchen to grab himself a cup of water. Not very complicated, not very, very basic task. And the father ran out of the room, choked the boy out, and he actually had to be rushed to the hospital because he passed out. Another instance, one of the neighbors was telling me a story where he got out. It was winter. He got in his truck and went to the store, and the wife was unloading groceries out of the car, and the baby carrier was sitting on the front porch. Okay, maybe the baby was inside. Who knows? You know what I mean? So the guy goes to the store, comes back, and about a half hour to 45 minutes later, and the car's moved, but the baby carrier still sat outside. He thought, well, that's kind of a little odd. But hey, maybe the baby had an accident and they're waiting to go clean it up. You know what I mean? It's the dead of winter. No one would leave a baby out. He pulled into his driveway, got out, and he heard a very, very faint crying. And literally for 45 minutes, that lady left that baby in the carrier outside in the winter. Yeah. You go to some of these properties, and at least with me, you know what I mean? We call it the preservation spidey sense, but you can feel drama in a property. Like we go to properties where, people have passed away, and I don't go way off subject, but you feel that energy that's left in that property. It's just one of those things you can tell something bad happened there, and to think about the things that did happen in these houses that we go to in certain circumstances, just mind-boggling to get the inside story. And, we just store all that stuff. But eventually, the couple were arrested. The children were basically reassigned out to different homes, and they got 50 years in prison, and they are in prison currently now. So good for them. Some people.
That's really sad.
Yeah. Actually, up in your area, Mary, there was that one property that we went to, the older couple that hoarded animals. They literally had cages lining the walls. And this older couple, that's what they did. They literally took in a lot of animals. They love their animals. You know what I mean? That was their fur babies. And they, everything was organized. Everything was clean. Everything was nice when they were alive. Then what was it? The mom passed away. And then like a month later, the dad passed away. And supposedly like the city was supposed to come back in and remove all the animals, and they never did. So literally it was a horrible crime scene of a lot of dead animals in these cages. And these people had like monkeys and lizards and birds. They had a wide variety of animals. It wasn't like a cat hoarder. But yeah, literally, you get into this house and it's like, a crime scene. And we've done those too. They're not fun. We've never walked in on anything. We've never walked in on something like that. We are always after the effect, of course. I have talked to contractors that have walked in on people that have passed away and seen all that stuff. Actually, do you remember the property that we had, Mary, where the city contacted the client contacted us in regards to the property due to the gentleman who passed away there?
I think I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the mummified house.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'll let you talk about that for a minute.
So I can't remember all the details of the story, but I do believe the gentleman was living alone and he ended up passing away, and it was quite a long time before anyone found him. And when they finally went into the property and found him, he had already decomposed and like mummified, and like there was stains on the floor from like the bodily juices, and it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah. But and that's one of those situations where literally it's sad, because where was the family at in this process?
Yeah, and the police had to leave the windows open for I can't even remember how long because of the smell in that house.
Yeah, we actually we contacted the police and they actually gave us a key to get into the property and to deal with the situation. But,
Yeah.
we see that so many times. Actually, we're working on a few different houses right now as we currently speak where, you know, one would pass and the other would be living and then the other one would pass shortly. The one house in reference was an old farmer's house. It's hilarious because the barn is bigger than the house. But up in there in the one room, in the one corner, literally that's where the person ate, went to the bathroom, slept, ate, went to the bathroom and slept. Basically, they take off their dirty adult diapers, chuck them in the corner, and go from there. And that's the consistency of their life in dealing with things. It boggles my mind what we see in this industry. And that's one thing. Like I say, if you have some of those stories, share. Please DM us, write us a message, send us an email where we have all kinds of socials, all kinds of links to get to us. And please, we always find these stories interesting. Actually, Alan, do we have the clip of our other Vine house? We can get that up. I'd like to show that to everyone. This is actually on our TikTok page. This is one that we did a while ago. There it is. There's another Vine house. There's a house in there, people.
That whole one side is nothing but vines.
There it is.
The difference is amazing.
That property. We had to block the street off. It was hilarious. But yeah, we had that lift coming. And the funny part is that when we did that particular house, we you just run it by scrapers and slowly start peeling it away. Just peeling it down, and it came out in one huge bit. Surprisingly enough, that whole nasty house, literally took 4.5 hours to do because it just peeled right off. Literally, like from the roof line down, most of it just came right off. We mainly used the lift to get to the top pieces. But yeah, it was hilarious. It took us longer to chop it up because it came in this huge, 800-pound roll of vines. But it took us longer to load them in those trailers than it did to actually peel it off the house. But again, that's another thing. And that's an in-town property. And I have photographs when we were going to this property. Initially, we're like, hey, you guys need to get rid of the vines because there's nothing. There's no growth. It's all, it's October, November-ish. But again, they had to wait. They had to wait until, the middle of summer when that turned out to be. And yeah, everybody from the neighborhood was just sitting there watching, taking pictures of it for us. But that house was very interesting. And again, that house was a Fannie Mae house. Yeah, Penny Mac. Sorry, that's a Penny Mac house. But yeah, that was turned in. It was flipped out, and that house looks gorgeous. And every time I drive by it, I picture that vine job because, like I say, you even see the chimney up there by the power lines. Everything was covered. But again, you got to watch out because the vines will interlock inside of that brick. They'll grow inside of that mortar. So you start peeling some of that stuff away. I've heard stories where guys are doing vine jobs, and next thing you know, the chimney's coming down. We actually just did one of those where the vines were growing in and around the chimney so much that the mortar was breaking apart just because of the roots of the vines and stuff. And literally, we had to cut it off surgically to prevent, because the chimney was really just flopping around and ready to fall off. So again, another one of those, be safe. But yeah, I missed that house. That was a nice house. That was a gorgeous house inside. When we did the trash out, they had a huge barn in the back. It had a massive, massive wood stove. Took us forever to get rid of that. We literally had to break it apart and stuff. So again, another fun one. But yes, please check out our TikTok channel. We have a lot of those cool little videos of different things set up in there. Some of the shocker moments. And again, yeah. It never underestimates me. It never underestimates what we see in these houses, what we get into, the stories we hear, the things we have to deal with on the regular basis. It always is a surprise. And I think that's one thing that I do love about this industry is not only are we making our neighborhoods, the neighborhoods where we grocery shop, the neighborhoods that our friends live in, the neighborhoods that we live in, the neighborhoods where we drive by and go shopping, but we're making those properties beautiful again, and that's so key for the neighborhood. That's so key for the property values of things, because in the cycle of real estate life, when those properties get sold cheap, remember that devalues other people's properties. And that's one of the things too that we're going to start seeing in our industry coming up very shortly. As you all know, if you keep watching the news and keep watching things, it's now changing. Where a few years ago, there were 5 houses for sale within 100 square miles, you know what I mean? Because everyone had their 2.5% interest rates. They're not leaving anytime soon. So again, that drove the house prices up. Again, you had supply chains, you had all these other things driving material cost up. And again, housing prices are at that stage right now where no one can afford a house, or it's difficult to afford a house. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA just redid all of their criteria for loan improvements. So now instead of having a minimum of a 600 score, I think they're down to like 520 now, where you used to have to put in for like a conventional loan 20%, then they took down to 10%. Now FHA is talking like 3%, 1% down payment. So, another critical thing to think about, what is that going to do down the road? Are we preparing ourselves for another bubble crash? Not saying that. I'm simply saying is some of those criteria there can be very risky and could create issues down the road if not managed properly. One of the big thing is, with the home value so high, nobody's buying them. So people are now dropping their prices. We have a house not too far from us. We worked on for one of our clients, and it was purchased, I think, for $96,000 sheriff's sale. They did a lot of work to it. Have not been inside, don't have the time, not buying a house. So, but, they did a lot of work to it. They painted it blue, bright blue. And by the way, if you spray a house bright blue, don't get any on the roof because it looks like crap. Hint to the builder, in case you're watching. But anyway, so they originally listed that at like $399,900. Couldn't sell it. They keep dropping. And last time I looked at that property, it is now $298,000. So they literally dropped the price by $100,000 in 7 months. Now we drive by, the yard looks horrible. It looks like one of the pictures, very overgrown. So we're not even sure if they're walking away from that. Maybe that'll also be another repeat house.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think, another funny one. I love repeat customers. We had a house where literally the gentleman went into foreclosure, lost the property. No big deal. It happens. So we do our thing, so on and so forth. And then I think it was like 3 years later, the name stuck with me because it was and I'm not going to say it, but it was a very unusual name. A name it's not common at all. Mm-hmm. And literally like 3 years later, we get a work order and we do our due diligence, we do our research, and it's the same guy. He went out and bought another house when he lost this one, and now he lost this one. Some people just
don't learn.
Yeah, don't learn. Got to pay them bills. But anyway, I just found that funny. That's a repeat customer house. And we've had properties where they're plagued. A home buyer or somebody will lose their property in the foreclosure process, and then we'll come in, do our business, and then it'll get sold at sheriff's sale. Some flipper will buy it, flip it out, supposedly, come back, and they'll sell the property, and then like literally within months, it will come back. You know what I mean? And since we're local to the area, we work with so many different clients, we have a high probability of getting the property back, and we did. And we're like, really? But then you go in and realize that, the foundation is shifting. This wasn't done right. That was patched over. That wasn't done right. And there's serious issues. And the people just said, screw this, walked away. This particular property, this was one where they sold it again really, really cheap. And they actually demolished it because it had serious foundation issues serious foundation shifts. And again, it was costing more to repair it than the property was worth, in my opinion. So, but yeah, you run into all kinds of different stuff in this industry, and it's fun, it's exciting, and it's very unique. We are taking a hot minute, kind of showing a couple different properties that we've worked on, and we do a lot. We do about 4,000 to 5,000 properties a year. So we have plenty of these stories. We just kind of interject and show you the different side of things that you get into, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We all wish that all of our houses were powered on, air conditioned, and with good water in the refrigerator, but that never seems to happen. So we always end up with the properties. We just did a condo not too long ago, jumping back, talking about a comment that was made about dog and animal feces. This person literally went in and they moved all their furniture out, and they had a cat, and they just let the cat there. Now, they did retrieve the animal. There was nothing bad happening in there, but they left the cat there while they were moving and stuff. And literally, like around the corners of every room, there was just a trail, a large, nasty trail of cat poop. Why? I would hate to be the neighbor above, below, and to the right and to the left, because we walk into that place and it's just nasty and disgusting as can be. And here it is, just rotting away. Never understand people. Never understand people. Mm-hmm. You hear the horror stories too, where people like disassemble their house because they're upset, they're angry that they're losing their property. You're losing the property because you didn't pay the bill. It is what it is. Sell the thing, do something. But no, these people like rip out kitchen cabinets because I installed a kitchen. You don't realize the after effect. The bank will come back. The bank will do their thing. Trust me, they are patient, and they will come back and they'll file lawsuits. And I have heard several stories where that happens, and it's like, it just boggles my mind. Just move on. Things happen. There's no reason to leave your dog there or to take your dog or cat and throw it out the door because you can't handle it anymore. You're losing the house. We run into that all the time where homeowners, family members of deceased homeowners, they'll just chuck the animals out of the house, and we have to also try to deal with these situations. And we try to trap these animals. We try to deal with them and get them back into a home environment. But again, it's like, why? It's just one of the hard things of the industry to deal with too. But yeah, we've shoveled our good amount of poop in our time frame. In this industry, we have, yeah, you gotta love it sometimes.
I'm sure it's more than you care to admit.
Yeah, the amount of money I've paid to get rid of poop, it boggles my mind sometimes,
Yeah.
And we have done those houses where it's like the one house that we just saw, they'll throw their dogs, their cats downstairs in the basement, and then they'll just use it as a big litter box. We had one house where literally it was a very interesting lady, but she was a cat hoarder. And literally what she did was she went into the basement and she literally lined her basement with play sand. She had a cat door cut in and she never went down there. But that was the cat's litter room, literally.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about living in that, think about living in that kind of squalor. But yeah, that took a long, long, long time to shovel, to clean and disinfect. Still can't get the smell out of that concrete. But yeah, people nowadays are interesting. That's all I got to say.
The smell that would rise up through the house.
I was at a house yesterday. I was talking to one of the neighbors. It was hot, and of course, always remember, if it's hot, bring your water. So anyway, I was just taking a 10-minute break. I was kind of hanging out on the porch. I've already talked to all the neighbors. They know me. And we do that also. We try to build a little bit of relationship with certain properties that we go to, just so that way when there's that truck in the driveway, they know it's us, so we become trusted people. We go to these properties a lot. And that's one of the key things. When you go to these properties for grass cuts, we've mentioned this before, don't go in with an attitude, oh crap, I got a $20 grass cut. This is going to be a waste of my time. Go find work. Go find work. It'll come. Trust me. Take the pictures. Show the client what the property needs, and it will come. Plain and simple. So, like I say, I took a 10-minute break, and the neighbor came over, and she's like, are you okay? Do you want some water? Do you want some ice? And it was like, no, I'm good, ma'am. Thank you so much. We started talking and found out the owner of the property had just passed away in February. And those are always hard things because you go into these properties, you see the family photographs, you see the life that they lived. This lady unfortunately got very, very, very sick, and she got moved into a nursing home and then eventually succumbed to her illness. And again, it's always sad to hear these things, but unfortunately, it's going to happen to everybody. But like I say, the lady is like, she's sniffling and she's like, what is that smell? I'm like, ma'am, that's the house. You know what I mean? This lady she was a cat hoarder. She was a dog hoarder, and literally there was food, rotting food and everything else. And the house, the neighbor's never been that close to the house. But when she showed up, because I had the door open and the garage door open because I was taking pictures, and yeah. By the way, that particular house, we pulled 1.25 tons. So that would be, I think it was like 2,200 pounds of food out of that house. 2,200 pounds of food out of that house.
Is that the house that had like all the canning stuff out in the garage, the stuff that she canned and did herself?
No, that's a whole other house. That is up in your area. I'm talking about the one down towards me. I went and did the tree trimming on over the weekend.
Okay.
That's the one that our crew handled down there. What she's referring to was a nice elderly elderly couple's house. It was a very nice rancher style lifted on a block foundation, had a garage underneath. It was on a really tight thing. We do the initial secure, and one of the initial secure criteria is to remove all the food with this particular client. So we go in there. And literally, I get a phone call, and I'm like, we really got to remove all the food. How much is there? Like, well, here, upload your pictures. Let me take a look. And literally, there is an entire, like half of the basement is canning goods, wines, food, metal canned, and then glass jar canning stuff. This couple was very old, so again, that's what they did. They had a little tiny garden, and boy, they processed more stuff in grocery stores in that little garden. It blew my mind. But no, literally that particular house, we pulled, because it took us 2.5 days to do that, and I think we actually pulled like 1.5 tons out of that house. Because we had to send both trucks up on that job because we couldn't pull the dump trailer in. To pull that out, so we had to do it all by truckload. And literally, that's what they did for 2 days. That's all we did was pull, because it's canning goods, it's glass jars. You just can't chuck it in a bag. We had to box it out. We had to put it in, and we had to go dump it at the municipality transfer station. And literally, yeah, that's what it was. It's just, think about that, 3,000 pounds. That's what your car weighs. If you have a small car, think about that.
So much food.
These people were ready to survive the apocalypse. And it was hilarious because it all came out of this little patchy garden. You know what I mean? That was like a fence row garden. And like I said, they planted that thing for everything. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. Like every year, they just planted a bunch of stuff. They probably maybe they went to farmers markets and things like that and got fresh vegetables for canning. But it's like, that was their pastime, and that was my nightmare. We had so much to do that week. I was like, really? Because the sad part is, again, our industry does not pay by weight. Our industry pays by yardage. You know what I mean? And by the way, length times width times height divided by 27. That's your cubic yardage. I'll do it again. The length of your truck, the width of your truck, the height. Multiply all that together, come up with a number, divide that by 27. That's how you come up with cubic yardage. Length times width times height in feet divided by 27. That's how you get yardage. But anyway, yeah, to think about that is just mind-boggling. And, that transfer station was actually quite expensive. And, yeah, with all the time, the energy, the extras that we had to deal with that, yeah, I lost heavily on that one. But that's okay. And like you said, we made up on other things, and that's just the way it is. But that particular house got sold and got flipped. And that's the key thing in our industry. That's the key goal in our industry to, again, property preservation, PMP. If you look at all the matrices, you look at HUD definition, is to protect and preserve. So we protect the property, we protect the asset, we preserve the asset by cutting the grass, by cleaning the gutters, by trimming the trees, trimming the shrubs, getting rid of the debris, getting rid of the things, doing the sales claims. Our ultimate goal is to have that property listed and sold. And trust me, there is an endless supply of properties. This industry will never die. This industry does not go away. And you can make a ton of money in this industry. And one of the reasons why this show is created is to, number one, help to train, help to give insight to the industry. And again, we do have a new portal, which is our school site, SKOOL, where we will be doing intermediate classes, downloadable classes, where you are able to have one-on-one instruction on how to, visually how to. We go through winterizations, wet winterizations, steam winterizations. We go with initial secures, how to deal with the locks, the different mechanisms on how to enter a property, how to do a proper shrub trimming. And I know, like I say, it's like, well, of course you do this. It's not exactly that way. There are criteria you need to meet, and there's little tricks you do that we have found works for us, so we maximize our money. We help you build your business. We help you to bid. We help you to process. We have a very list of processing companies that can help you. We have lists of where you get your materials. Where do you get your lock chains? How do you repin a lock? Does anyone know how to repin a lock? How to rekey a lock? You know what I mean? We help show you these things. How to do proper boardings, how to do, your proper roof repairs, your gutters, and what to bid for the property. And again, we have been doing this a long time. We have a lot of trusted vendors. We have a lot of trusted clientele that we have spent years and years and years building relationships with. And these clients are looking for contractors, companies like ours. So we kind of figured, well, hey, if we can take the collective information that we have learned through the bumps of the road, or through the mistakes and through all the issues, and we can pick out the good stuff, put it into a video form, download it, and then have people learn from it. And our techniques that are good and our clients love, we can start building a network across the country of trusted contractors working with trusted national companies, and we all win. And that's the key thing, is to build in a sense, a large group of people in the same mindset, one voice, to, help change our industry, help make it better, get the foreign process, or get the foreign companies out of our industry. The foreclosures are an American problem. They need to be worked on by American contractors and through American-based national companies or real estate agents, and the money stays inside of our borders. You have these companies that are making millions, and I mean millions of dollars, running out of a data processing center out of Bangladesh, out of Belize, out of India, out of Switzerland, Germany. They have, the one house or the apartment in some city somewhere. They have a front company, and because of whatever reason, the nationals keep pushing them. They sign up the local contractors. They give them the work for pennies on the dollar. They do it because there's no other work available, and John, the contractor, is not big enough to start talking to a national company because he doesn't cover enough. The point is that if we take an American company and we have money flowing to a different state for a contractor to get the work done, the profit the American company makes goes to the local stores, goes to wherever, but it doesn't get shipped overseas. It doesn't go fund a third world country. American problems, American money needs to stay in America. plain and simple. And second off, how many times have you scrolled through the message board, scrolled through the things, and next thing you know, don't work for this company, they screw you over. What's the recourse? What are they going to do? It doesn't matter. You can go call the client, go call the national. Good luck. They don't care. You know what I mean? And the contract you signed, you waived all rights for liens. So now you open yourself up to a lawsuit. So that's one of the criteria we wanted in starting this podcast and starting this information is to get us out there to join together with a lot of great people, give some instruction, and hey, maybe even learn a couple things too. We have some guest hosts that's going to be coming online shortly. Actually, one of the largest regional American-based companies, hopefully. We can get him on shortly, pick his brain to find out some fun stuff and hear some good stories. But as I said, it's a process. So hopefully very shortly we'll be getting our training courses set up, our classes set up, our membership portal set up. We're taking a lot of time to make sure we're giving all the proper information and downloading everything within the 15 years experience I have in this industry, downloading it into a video format and, kind of helping the smaller contractor build his business because, again, you can make a ton of money in this business, a ton of money. It never stops. You never have to worry about advertising. You never have to worry about, government shutdowns you got to worry about. And yeah, HUD getting kind of going through the fine tooth comb by Elon. You got to worry about that every now and again, but they're very few and far between. I enjoy this industry. I love it. I love making a change. I love the fact that I'm able to help out neighborhoods and help out different people and make $1 in it too. So, you got to love it sometimes. And if you don't love what you do, just go do something else. So, but I find this to be very valuable, and I've met a lot of people in this. So, but with that, I think we are going to call this a wrap. We shared a few different stories today. Like you say, I hope everyone got a chuckle at some of our vine jobs, and we get them all the time. It is nothing uncommon, especially grass cuts and things like that. We get them all the time too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, let me break in there. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this week, and hopefully you already had breakfast after talking about all the food and looking at the fridges. Hopefully it didn't make you sick. And we also like to thank Diamond Bar for the gift on TikTok. And if you have any nightmares, your own nightmares, or just want to vent about the industry or vent about a job that you recently had, please put it in the comments. Let us know. You can join our community or our Facebook group. Put all your stories in there. We'd love to hear it. Also, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. You can go to propertypresinsiders.com for more information about everything. On there, you'll find links to everything. You'll find clips and links to all our social media. And we will be back next week with more chaos and nightmares that you definitely shouldn't watch before you go to bed. And we will see you then. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great week.